Hello and a very warm welcome to live coverage of the 14th Taishan Artistic Gymnastics World Cup. The stage is all set at the Aspire Dome, which is looking magnificent as always. The sporting community in Doha are well used to hosting large events, with the first World Cup in artistic gymnastics being held back in 2008. Like last year, the competition will be held without the fans due to the strict COVID protocols. However, with the camaraderie between all the gymnastics, there is still bound to be a fabulous atmosphere for some world-class performances. A total of 30 countries registered for this year's event, featuring some of the world's top artistic gymnastics in the world. 77 men, 31 women. Qualifications have taken place over the last 2 days, with the finals being held today and tomorrow. Today, we'll be starting with the floor exercise for men, followed by vault for the women, pommel horse, uneven bars, and rings. Many of the gymnasts competed in Germany last weekend, so their busy schedule continues. It's been a real chance for them to try new programs due to the revised Code of Points, which came into force in January, and then build on their continued journey, many of them already having their sights set on qualifying for Paris 2024. Here's the start list for the floor exercise. Ilya Kovtun there going 7th. He's in all of the finals today, so has a busy afternoon and certainly showing great resilience at such a difficult time, and certainly have great admiration for this young gymnast. A very strong field indeed in the floor men.
Please, marching of the judges.
As the all-important judges take their place, they're certainly going to have a very busy afternoon, all highly qualified in their own field to ensure a fair result today. So 8 qualified from all of the men that originally entered the floor exercise. Top 8 going through today. Artem Dogofiat, he qualified in first place. He is the current Olympic champion. Got a hero's reception in Israel after the Tokyo Olympics, being only the second person to win gold for Israel. Finished 7th in the World Cup last weekend, so hoping to repeat what he did in the qualifying stages a couple of days ago.
Marching of the gymnast finalists on the floor.
And Now we welcome the finalists. Some of them really hoping to get on that all-important podium. Others just absolutely delighted to have qualified for today's final. Luke Whitehouse, Great Britain, did exceptionally well to qualify in second place. Ilya Kovtun took a gold last weekend at the World Cup, but that was in the parallel bars. Just missed out on the floor exercise, so again we'll be hoping to go better and get on the podium this time. Roo Sung-hyun from Korea, very experienced on this exercise, finishing fourth in both the World Championships and the Olympic Games last year.
Presentation of the gymnast finalists for the floor exercises. Representing Croatia, Oleg Benovic. From Great Britain, Luke Whitehouse. Representing Kazakhstan, Milad Karimi. From Ireland, Adam Seal. Representing Korea, Sung-Yu. From Ireland, Ivan Montgomery. From Ukraine, Ilya Kovtun. And from Israel, Afem Dolgopiak. Please, 2 minutes warm up for the fourth gymnast. 2 minutes warm up.
Chance for a quick warm-up before the competition starts. Settle the nerves a little bit. Make sure the landings are nice and steady like that. So unlike the women, there isn't any music in the floor exercise for men. Program's a maximum of 70 seconds. And the judges will be checking to make sure they don't take too long in setting up for these acrobatic series of movements and these combinations. Judges will also be checking to make sure any balances are held for around 2 seconds. And the expectation is some powerful, aggressive tumbling with height and very clean landings with only a few adjustments. So the first 4 will warm up and then compete, and then the final 4 will have a chance to warm up as well. Important, if you haven't watched much artistic gymnastics before, very important that they stay within the blue area. There will be penalties if they move outside of that.
Wow, that is over. We are starting the competition with the first gymnast representing Croatia, Oleg Benovic.
So first to start, Oleg Benovic, the 21-year-old from Croatia. Finished second in the floor exercise back at the European Championships in 2020. Normally is beautiful to watch. Lovely height there, just managed to control it, just a small step forward. Good vertical line, that's expected. Excellent start there, showed some really good height. Just a couple of little extra sort of adjustments on some of the landings, but good difficulty. His routine 6.3 difficulty in qualification, which was actually the hardest. So he certainly packs in all of the content. Strapping to protect those ankles, but look at the height that he gets there. Very solid on that landing. Important that they don't bend the knees too much. Don't go too deep on those landings. Had to really sort of dig deep there to control the ending. But very, very solid performance indeed. Pike somersault there, just managing to stay within the blue. Just small deductions if they do step out of it. 0.1 if it's just a hand or a foot. Waits patiently while the judges review, make sure that the difficulty is as expected. 6.3, that was the same difficulty, but overall 14.166. A great start there. That was exactly the same score that he got in. But actually it's very, very slightly more than he got in qualifications. And now Luke Whitehouse, who scored 14.166 himself in the qualifications, currently lying second. That's a shame, just missed that landing. Hand down to support. Solid on those landings now. Good split and into a very strong balance. Well, certainly seemed to steady the nerves as he went through his programme. He's 20 years of age this year. He's competed for Great Britain at junior and senior level, but his major breakthrough came in 2019 when he competed in 7 internationals. He's the first British that's for about 30 hours a week, 6 days a week. It does actually cover all 6 apparatus. Just a few unsteady landings there, as you can see. So 14.166 was his score in qualification, and a difficulty of 6. So certainly Aureo Benebig setting the standard. 14.166 was his score in this final. He does really go for the difficulty. If the execution is done well, it certainly pays off. His difficulty was 6.3 versus 6 for Luke Whitehouse. But it's important to go with a difficulty that you know you can execute well. So lovely to see how all of these gymnasts, they see each other a lot at all of these tournaments. So here's the score, 12.700. Disappointing for him after his performance in the qualification.
Next gymnast on the floor, representing Kazakhstan,
But certainly will learn from that experience. Vlad Karami from Kazakhstan. Getting really good speed in the acrobatic movements. Very solid. Oh, the height there. Fabulous performance. He really is very strong in the floor exercise. Finished 5th at the Olympic Games in Tokyo last year and 7th in the World Championships. Well used to competing here, finishing 5th in this event last year. Look at that height. Lovely double tuck. Just managing to control it, but all those little adjustments do make a difference. Qualified in 7th place. Score then was 13.90. Like Luke Whitehouse before, same difficulty of 6.0. Important to show good extension in the legs. Looks fairly relieved, I have to say, to get that over. 13.9 was his score yesterday, 14.066. So an improvement today.
0.0667. Next gymnast on the floor, coming from Ireland, Adam Seeley.
Now we have Adam Steele from Ireland. foot out, be a small deduction. Qualified in 5th place. Lovely. Again, tremendous height and really controlled the landing. And a very strong finish to his performance. 24 years of age. Just a slight error halfway through the performance. But as I say, qualified 5th, scored 13.966 at that time. It was yesterday, sorry, the day before yesterday, a couple of days ago, when they took part in the qualification. He's competed in 2 World Championships, finished 37th on floor exercise back at the World Cup in Doha back in 2018. So really fantastic to have qualified here today. Trains in Ipswich, and competes for Ireland. His dad is Ireland. Made finals in the all-around at the European Championships back in Bâle. First member of the Republic of Ireland to make the final in that event. Lovely extension in the feet there. Trains 30 hours a week and was able to carry on training during COVID. Got a special licence from the government to be able to do that. Big thumbs up. Started actually at the Colchester School of Gymnastics, then moved to Piper's Vale in Ipswich, coached by Will Banthorpe. So his difficulty in qualification 5.7, scored 13.966. Judges spending their time, taking their time, reviewing the performance before agreeing on the final score. But what an improvement Adam Steele has made over the years. When you think he was 37th in this exercise before, 12.766 is his total score, 37th just in 2018, and now in a final at a World Cup. Sung Hyung Yoo qualified 3rd, a difficulty of 5.9. Finished just outside the medals of the Olympic Games and the World Championships as well. 4th. Again, lots of strapping to protect those ankles. Had to work hard then to control that. Great body alignment. Really keeping the momentum going there. Again, had to work hard to control that landing. That will affect the score slightly, but at least he didn't actually fall over. And he walks off with a big smile on his face. What a talent he is. Came up through the Junior World Championships as well, where he won gold in the floor exercise. That was when it was held in Hungary. Actually took a gold in his very first senior competition, World Cup back in 2020 in Melbourne. That was his first senior competition. Just 19 years of age. Did really well to control that. Excellent momentum here. Very strong. So 14.166 is the score to beat. Just that slight mishap at the end. Qualified third. 14.100. Have to see that very slight error, how it affected the overall score. But I love the height that he was getting on a lot of the movements. An amazing gymnast, say just 19 years of age. Certainly be continuing to train in the hope of being on that podium in Paris 2024, having just missed out in Tokyo. 13.933 is his score, just slightly less than he achieved in qualification.
Let's continue the floor with the next gymnast, representing Ireland, Ivan Montgomery.
Mere 21 years of age. My apologies. I think there's been a change to the start list. This is Eamon Montgomery. Brilliant. Nice and steady. First reserve after the qualification, so finished in 9th place. The height that he gets there, a great opportunity for him here to be in this finals at a World Cup. Those legs nicely together, that's important. Then going straight into the balance. Certainly being appreciated by his coaches there, who work so hard with all of these athletes. So that's good enough to put him in fourth place at the moment with a score of 13.533.
Representing Ukraine, Ilya Kovtun.
So Ilya Kovtun having a very busy afternoon in all three finals. Qualified in the floor exercise in sixth place. Just missed out on a medal in the floor last weekend in Germany, but did take gold in the parallel bars. Lovely control. Good performance from Ilya Kovtun, 13.933 was his qualification score. Currently ranked 11th in the world on this exercise. Incredible athlete, just 18 years of age. Took 5 golds at the Junior European Championships back in 2020, including the all-around. Started at the age of 3 years old, so already very experienced indeed. Always goes for difficulty. Difficulty score was 6.0 qualification. Managing to compete in what must be very, very challenging circumstances. Really good height on the flares, hips nice and high, legs nice and even, but open. Heels perfectly in line. Managing to control the landings, just a few small adjustments. So he will be getting his scores and then focusing. What do you say? So 14.333. That certainly puts him in first place at the moment, ahead of Uriel Benitrov, who was 14.166. Alten Dogofiat from Israel, Olympic champion. Oh, the speed there, and so steady on the landing. Landing very slightly forward, but managing to control it. And really good speed here, very impressive. And very strong and solid finish. He qualified in first place. His score then was 14.66. Score to beat at the moment. Ilya Kovtun's 14.333. He won the floor exercise in Doha at the World Cup last year. So obviously likes this venue. The Spire Dome really does look magnificent. And you know, as I said, in my introduction, if you heard it, you know, we haven't got any crowds here. The fans aren't allowed in because of COVID, but it's so great to see the support that the other gymnasts, they give each other and the other teams, so that it does create an atmosphere for the gymnasts, which must help with their performances as well. Such good camaraderie. They all know each other so well. Artem Dolgopyat, he came up via the Youth Olympic route, finished 7th in the Youth Olympics back in 2014, and a lot of these gymnasts do tend to come up through that route. He certainly looks happy with the performance. Moved to Israel from Ukraine when he was just 12 years old. He said he didn't know any of the language, but the gym's skills helped him talk. 14.733, putting him in first place. Congratulations, Artem Dolgopyat. And confirmation of the final scores. Israel, Artem Dolgopyat taking the gold, Ilya Kovtun from Ukraine the silver, Orel Brnjevic from Croatia the bronze. Eamon Montgomery, last minute replacement. Remember, he qualified 9th, finishing there in 6th place, just slightly ahead of his teammate Adam Steele. Luke Whitehouse, disappointment for him, having qualified in 2nd place. A few of those landings not quite strong enough. But some exceptional performances to start off these finals of the World Cup here in the Aspire Dome in Doha. Next up, we'll have the vault for women. So we have a chance to look at some of the exceptional performances.
Women artistic gymnastic vault. Marching of the gymnast finalists for women artistic gymnastics.
now as we welcome the finalists for the vault for women. Top 8 qualified a couple of days ago. Qualifications took place on Wednesday.
Presentation of the gymnast finalists on the floor. Representing Russian Gymnastic Federation, Victoria Listunova. Representing Slovenia, Saya Kiselev. Representing Russian Gymnastic Federation, Arina Semukina. From Hungary, Krenge Maria Bakshai. From Hungary, Dorina Rojuego. Representing Morocco, Nisrin Hassanen. From Uzbekistan, Oksana Shusovitina. And from Algeria, Sidem Hamidi. Nouveau warm-up for the 4 first gymnasts.
So the presentation of the finalists, they've all been introduced.
On the ball, start value will be defined by
It'll be their chance to shine at this World Cup final. Have a chance to warm up now
Difficulty judge from Qatar.
as we have a chance to look at the start list.
Execution judges from Australia.
Going in 7th place, Oksana
From Uzbekistan,
Josepatina,
Oksana
the
Ksiotov.
46-year-old. Yes, that's right, you heard me right. 46-year-old, former Olympic champion and world champion.
From
She
Syria,
said she was going to retire
Radir.
after the Olympic Games last year, where she finished 14th. Just missed out on a qualification spot for the finals, but that retirement, very short-lived indeed. She missed it too much. She wanted to get back in the gym and is now competing again for the World Cups, and also using this as Asian Games preparation, the Asian Games taking place later this year in China. Qualified first was Victoria Listunova, just 16 years of age. Didn't compete in the World Championships last year due to injury. So it will be interesting to see how she copes today. Very, very strong athlete indeed. And good to see countries like Morocco having somebody in the final. Nisrin Hassanen qualified in 8th place. So I'm sure if you're a follower of artistic gymnastics, you will know that there are 2 vaults. The average is taken from those 2 vaults. .25-meter run-up before they hit the vault, or table as it's sometimes known. The vaults will be taken from different vault groups.
Ambulance, what's the emergency?
There's a young boy, looks like he's collapsed outside.
They found another body.
We think these deaths could be connected.
I think my son's been murdered.
Young boys, their whole lives ahead of them.
I didn't know that.
Are you telling us the truth, Stephen?
4 Lives, now streaming on SBS On Demand.
Warm-up is over. We are starting the competition with the first gymnast, representing Russian Gymnastic Federation, Victoria Litsunova.
So as you can probably hear,
First ball.
first 16-year-old Victoria Listonova qualified in first place with a score of 13.466. Very steady start, nicely centred. They mustn't go outside of those lines that you saw to the left and the right, the white lines, because there would be deductions for that. She does tend to go for her most difficult vaults first. That concentration and the power. Such a talented gymnast. Important to really hit the board in the right place to get the maximum spring. Part of the team that won gold at the Olympic Games last year. Former junior world champion. Gold in the all-around and the floor. 8th in the vault.
For Victoria Listonova.
So that's the score for her first vault, 13.833, difficulty of 5. Stepping outside those lines, so that will be a deduction. That's disappointing for her. Just a 4.2 degree difficulty for her second vault qualification. There was nothing she could do about that. Just didn't get the alignment, but good extension in the legs there in that pike position. And you can see just that body falling forward. So she had to step out to control it. So the total score will be the average of the 2 vaults that you've just seen. Total score from qualification was 13.466, slightly lower, 13.133.
12.433. Next gymnast on the wall, representing Slovenia, Zaya Kiselev.
So Zaya Kiselev qualified in 4th place. Very powerful. Got really good height there to be able to control it. Finished 14th at the World Championships last year in Japan. Keep the legs extended. 13.3, just a difficulty of 4.6.
SLF 13.3. Second pole.
So much power there, needed that little step forward at the end. But overall, a good vault. Very experienced, competed in 7 World Championships altogether, a real vault specialist. Wasn't able to compete though in 2020. She had to have surgery on her ankle. Libiana would like to see the legs just a little bit closer together. She moved on to the table. Took the gold in this event just last week. Her score there 13.033, putting her in second place behind Listonova.
Second pole 12.766. Next gymnast on the floor, representing Russian Gymnastic Federation, Arina Semukina.
So she can hear Arina Semukina, qualified 5th. Doesn't tend to go for too much difficulty. But that's absolutely right for her age and experience. She's new to the international scene. She only became a senior last year. Took part in their nationals last year, finishing 10th in the all-around. Didn't actually make the finals in the vault. Really good to see this up-and-coming talent. 12.966, difficulty 4.2.
Semukina.
Slightly easier second vault. But what fantastic experience she's having here at this World Cup. Difficulty of 4 for her second vault, which was slightly more difficult than the one that she did in qualifications at 3.8. Quite a long way back on the platform. But managing to control it well. .699 is her total. Reaching her third at the moment.
Second ball 12.433. Next gymnast on the ball, representing Hungary,
So the 18-year-old Sengi Maria Baksai, representing Hungary. Just managed to control it, very slight step out to the left. Silver medal at the Youth Olympics back in 2018 in Buenos Aires. Very strong gymnast. Vault certainly is her strength, although she does compete most of the apparatus. World Championships last year, finished 5th. Exceptional performance, having finished 6th in the European Championships. 13.3, difficulty of 4.6.
13.3. Second ball for Saint-Hilaire Mashka.
So this has a difficulty of 4.4. So the same bolts as she did in the qualification. Born in Budapest, she turned senior back in 2019. That concentration, legs nicely together and very central on the landing. Really good positioning. Keep the legs locked in that extension, and the feet as well. The thumbs up. Executed very well. 13.150, and that's good enough to put her in first place.
Average 13.15, and she's taking the first place.
Like just very slightly ahead of Listenberger, who scored 13.133. So we wait now for the final 4 gymnasts, a chance for them to warm up first. Quite a difference in the age groups in the next 4. We have a 30-year-old, a 20-year-old, 46-year-old, and then an 18-year-old. Oksana Chazvatina, who will go second to last. What an inspiration she is for sports people across the world. Still competing at 46, she really is a phenomenon. Call her the Grand Dame of artistic gymnastics. Incredible lady. You know, what is amazing is that she was competing before a lot of these athletes were even born, and they certainly all have the utmost respect for her and love for her. To be competing against the elite at 46 years of age, I can't tell you just how difficult that is. You know, most have gone on to senior competitions, masters competitions, in all sports across the world, and that's something that's really growing, and it's great to be challenging yourself as you get older and trying new things, but to be actually competing against the youngsters and actually doing remarkably well. Amazing. When you think she was former Olympic champion, taking gold in Barcelona, that was way back in 1992. And then took a silver in Beijing as well. And more recently even finished 7th in Rio in 2016. People thought that she was disappointed after not qualifying for the finals in Tokyo because there were tears, but that's because she was retiring. But let's move on now to the other gymnasts and focus on Dorina Bozigo, 30 years of age, qualified in 6th place. Very good. Well controlled. Difficulty of 4.2. Qualifications. Her second vault was a 3.6. Quite a long way back on the table. But good body alignment in the air. So 13.0 for her first vault. Now she'll have a signal from the judges, and then we'll have to do her second vault within 30 seconds of that signal. Nice. Code of points, they've slightly adapted the difficulty ratings for some of these movements to bring some of the scoring in line with the other apparatus. Good height there. Lots of strapping to protect those ankles. She's a double Olympian, having competed back in 2008. She finished 12th in this apparatus, and 17th in 2012. Took a bronze with her team in the European Championships back in 2020. Qualified in 6th place. Strapping to protect those wrists as well. Very important. She has had her fair share of injuries over the years. Had a rather nasty shoulder injury back in 2020. Very experienced though, 7 World Championships. Took a silver floor exercise the World Challenge Cup last year. The floor exercise finished 5th in the vault. That was the World Challenge Cup in Turkey. 12.60, 5th place. Dorina Bezagay.
Next gymnast on the ball, representing Morocco, District Hassanen.
Nisreen Hasnain. Really strong performance from her in qualification. Qualified 8th with a score of 11.500. 20 years of age. Had to really bend those knees a lot to be able to control the landing. Would have liked to have seen a little bit more extension in the feet. Those tuck somersaults. Yeah, just a little bit deep on the landing. Meaning she had to take that one step forward. Finished 6th in the vault in African Games when they were held in Morocco. 11.866.
Hassanen.
Difficulty of 3.6. In qualifying, her second vault was a difficulty of 3.2. Nice pike, again that deep landing, and just 1 foot going out, which would be a very small deduction. She must have been really delighted to have qualified through this final. All about getting the placement of the hands right on the table so that you can get the height to control the landing. If you don't get the height, it does make the job really, really hard with those knees coming down. Fabulous experience for her. 11.233.
And the result, second goal for Hassanen, 10.6. Next gymnast on the floor, representing Uzbekistan, Oksana Shusofitina.
So, the very, very impressive 46-year-old Oksana Shusofitina. Qualified third. And you can really hear the support that she's getting from everyone else, and that's so fabulous to see. Always a big smile on her face. She loves what she does. Former Olympic and world champion. Look at that for concentration. Formerly represented Germany and the Soviet Union. Took a brief retirement, as I say, last year. Moved to Germany originally because her son wasn't well. She needed him to have treatment. But so good to see that her retirement was so short-lived. She's back here again, training for the World Cups and also for the Asian Games later this year. An incredible lady. 3 golds in World Championships, 4 silvers and 4 bronze. Wow. Just love to watch her like everybody else. Just so, so impressive. 13.6, a difficulty of 5. So raise the difficulty from the qualifications. Brilliant. Big kiss for all the support, to thank everybody. So good to see her back. We all thought Tokyo was going to be her very last competition. So centered. A long way back on the table, but managed to control that. Very consistent indeed. Third in qualification, 12.494, but she has upped the difficulty. 13.433, putting her in first place. Big thumbs up. Amazing result for Oksana Chasapetina.
She's taking the lead of the competition. Last gymnast on the board, representing Algeria, Sihem Hamidi.
Sihem Hamidi from Algeria, qualified 7th. 11.599. So much speed in that, she really had to keep moving. No chance of stopping for a secure landing. Really fantastic for her to get a spot in these finals. Like to see a little bit more extension in legs before the tuck, maybe a little bit closer together. Put so much into that. She just needed to calm it down just a little bit. That's what happens. 12.10, difficulty of 3.6.
For Sihem Hamidi.
Nice. She looked a lot more controlled in her second vault. Just 18 years of age. .4 difficulty in the second vault, so the same as qualification. Good extension in the legs. So a total of 12.050, moving up one place after the qualification. Congratulations to her. We'll just wait for confirmation of the final result. Here we have Chasapetina, Oksana Chasapetina taking the gold with Uzbekistan, 13.433. What an incredible result for her. Yet another gold medal to add to her very big haul over the years. Maria Bakshay taking the silver, Victoria Stonova the bronze. Kiselev just missing out in fourth place. Great to see the up-and-coming talent as well from the youngsters coming through in the vault. Very strong final indeed, being led by the 46-year-old Oksana Chasapetina. As we have a chance now to recap on some of those performances.
we are starting now the medal ceremony for the vault man. Please, marching of the finalists and medalists.
So we now have the presentation for the men's floor exercise.
Artistic gymnastic apparatus walker presented by Taishan. Victory ceremony for the floor man artistic gymnastics. Third place and winner of the bronze medal, representing Croatia, Orel Benovic.
So Orel Benovic, the 21-year-old, taking the bronze medal. Very hard program, 6.3 difficulty.
Representing Ukraine, Ilya Kovtun.
Ilya Kovtun taking the silver for Ukraine to add to the 2 medals he won last weekend.
Of the gold medal, floor exercises, representing Israel, Artem Dogofiat.
And the gold going to Artem Dogofiat, the 24-year-old Olympic champion from Israel. Finished 7th last weekend in Germany, and now here taking the gold.
And please, your attention for the national anthem of Israel. Thank you, and applause for our medalists.
And now those all-important photographs. Memories to cherish.
Medal ceremony for the woman on the floor. Please, marching of the medalists. Medal ceremony on the vault of the 14th FIG Artistic Gymnastic Apparatus Walker presented by Taishan. On the 3rd place and winner of the bronze medals, representing Russian Gymnastic Federation, Victoria Lustinova.
So the 16-year-old
Second place and winner of the
Victoria
silver medal,
Kuznetsova taking the bronze, having qualified in first place. Bakshai, 18 years of age, the silver.
Representing Uzbekistan, Oksana Shusofitina.
And the legend, that is Oksana Chazbatina, taking the gold. What an amazing comeback from her after her brief retirement.
Thank you, and applause for our medalists.
Well, she's back, taking the gold.
Thank you, girls. We continue the competition with the common horse for the man. Please, marching of the judges.
So the judges will now enter the arena for the pommel horse finals, as we take a final look at some of that incredible vaulting. Oksana Chazpatina taking that gold. So the judges for the next sessions, pommel horse, which will be followed by uneven bars and then the rings.
Marching of the gymnast, pommel horse finalist.
As we welcome the finalists for the pommel horse. Ilya Cobson there has already been out here in the floor exercise, taking a medal today. Busy afternoon for a lot of the these athletes.
Presentation of the gymnast finalists on common horse. Representing Austria, Seni Dermishi. From Uzbekistan, Kamibulu Ergashev. From Armenia, Artyom Merdinyan. From Kazakhstan, Nariman Kurbanyov. Representing Ukraine, Ilya Kovtun. From Ireland, Chris McLenagan. From Belgium, Maxim Cheches. And representing Israel, Arden Dolgopiat. 2-minute warm-up for the four first gymnasts.
So a very exciting pommel horse final to follow. Haruchian Merdinyan qualified first from Armenia. The 37-year-old former European champion, World Championship bronze. Qualified for the final at the World Championships, but finished in 8th place because he lost momentum. So had a point deduction. We should also look out for Nariman Kabanov, qualified second from Kazakhstan. Ilya Kovtun, as always, the 18-year-old, he qualified third. Reese McLennan, good to see him in the final, having just missed it at the World Championships last year due to a slip. The important thing with the pommel horse is to keep momentum, keep those hips nice and high. Try not to touch the horse as we have confirmation of the start list here. Martin Dogofat going in last place. Olympic gold medalist. He's always been very busy today on floor exercise. So all about keeping momentum. It does help to be tall on this exercise. A really good alignment with the legs, just like that. Good movement across the horse, plenty of variety.
Welcome to we are starting the competition with the first gymnast on pommel horse.
What we do keeps the world's economy afloat. Bigger the risk, greater the profit.
So getting the chalk on the hands to try and avoid any slippage. So Jenny Demichi representing Austria, the first to go. Important to keep those legs very close together and not have any pauses. It needs to always have momentum. Good travel. Ah, that's a shame. Very disappointing for him. Have 30 seconds before they get back on the pommel horse, but of course, point deduction. Now he has to use all his resilience to really focus to keep it going now. Really good travel. Qualified in 8th place. Fairly easy on the difficulty compared with some of the others. Scored 13.633 in qualification. But you can see there, just let his leg come down too close, clipped the horse, and there was nothing that he could do. But well done him for the rest of the programme. Kept his cool, didn't go to pieces. Needs to keep those feet firmly together. That's good. Hips nice and high. And showing good strength here. No pauses. Feet together. Good, solid dismount. Naturally will be disappointed, but should take the positives. 12.30, difficulty of 5.2.
Next gymnast, representing Uzbekistan, Kamibulu Ergashev.
Representing Uzbekistan, Kabilu Ergashev, qualified in 7th place. Good momentum. Good single bar work, handle. Full use of the horse. To keep this going. Excellent performance. Good speed. If he was to just slightly touch the horse, there would be a few deductions. Just 0.5 for clipping the horse. But if they're seen and obviously using strength and having to use their arms to get that strength, there would also be small deductions as well. So those are the sort of things to look out for. I liked his extension. I liked the speed that he got in the rotations. He was very close to the horse at times. Congratulations for the coach. Often just as difficult for the coach having to watch it as it is for the gymnast doing the performance. score was 13.900 with a difficulty of 5.8 in qualification. That gave him 7th place. Started gymnastics back in 2005 when he's not training, which isn't very often. He likes movies and shopping. 13.866. So qualified in first place, Haruchan Merdinyan, 37 years of age. Scored 14.60, high difficulty of 6.0 in qualification. Good single handle work. Great momentum. Hips nice and high. Plenty of room between him and the horse. And a nice finish, showing nice vertical line before the dismount. Excellent from Haruchan Merdinyan, 37. Finished 8th in the World Championships last year, but did lose momentum on that occasion and got a 1-point deduction, so was very disappointed on that occasion, but no chance of that today. Took a bronze in the World Championships back in 2015, a gold back at the European Championships in 2016. So he's the first artistic gymnast from Armenia to win a medal, and it was a gold. In Rio, finished 7th in the pommel horse at the Olympic Games. Disappointment for him though, after finishing 4th in the qualification due to some wrist pain in the final. But this was an exceptional performance. Really well controlled throughout. .60. That's the same as his score from qualification and firmly puts him in first place. That's the standard.
Representing Kazakhstan, Nariman Kurbanov.
So now Kazakhstan, Nariman Kurbanov qualified in 2nd place, 14.566. So just very, very slightly behind Merdinyan. Very fluid. Lovely one-arm work. That adds to the difficulty. The audience appreciating that. Beautiful. Beautiful. Lovely performance there from Kurbanov. Had a difficulty of 5.8 in qualification against Merdinyan's 6.0. But really not much difference in the scores at all. Just a lovely line. And he almost makes it look easy. Finished 4th in the World Championships last year in Japan and took a silver medal in this event last year. He's competed at the World University Games, taking a silver in that as well back in 2019. Brought up with gymnastics course, his dad was a coach, so naturally introduced him to it. When he's not doing gymnastics, he studies law. He has an element named after him, Kurbanov, which was added to the code of points back in 2017. Remember, a score to beat, 14.60, 15.2 for Kurbanov, putting him firmly in first place. It really was a very special performance indeed. As we watch the final four having their warm-up, no wonder he's smiling. He just made it look so easy. Well, it really isn't one of the hardest apparatus. The strength that is needed, and it can be very punishing, very easy to slip off. I guess similar to the beam for the women. You have to have the chalk on your hands. Make sure your hands stay as centered as possible if they can. It's very hard on the arms. Needs plenty of endurance, and all the one hand work as well really adds to that difficulty. One thing you can't afford to be in this exercise is tentative. If you lose the speed of movement, that all important momentum I keep talking about, you stand no chance at all. And if you fall off, then it's a 1 point penalty and no chance really of being on that rostrum. A little bit of opening the legs as he warms up there.
1 of his photo, we are starting in the competition. On double holds. With the first gymnast. Representing Ukraine,
So from Ukraine, Ilya Kovtun, the second apparatus of the day, qualified in third place, difficulty of 6.2. That's his medal hopes have gone disappointing for him. So the 30 seconds now, but he knows he will have 1 point penalty, so he has a lot to make up now. Needs to really, really excel in the second half of this program. Doesn't seem to have that same speed of movement at the moment. Looks quite careful. Showing good strength. Just managed to control the end. Naturally, he'll be disappointed. It wasn't a flawless performance. I don't think he should be too hard on himself. He's doing so much here at this World Cup, having competed last weekend as well, where he won a gold and a silver. Taking the gold the parallel bars, took the silver in the pommel horse. Finished 11th in the all-around in Tokyo last year. Was able to compete as the Olympic Games were delayed a year, which meant he was then eligible due to his age. But an incredible gymnast at what is a very challenging time for him. So 14 of 466 was what he scored in qualification. Looks like he might have a little bit of a problem with his wrist there. So it doesn't anything too serious. 13.500 total score. Difficulty of 6.3. So representing Ireland, Rhys McLachlan qualified fourth, 14.466, had a very high degree difficulty of 6.4. Loving the speed he's getting into this. Legs nicely together, really good extension. Good travel, full use of the horse. Keep it going, needs to keep that speed. Excellent. Good performance there from Rhys. Finished 7th at the Olympic Games in Tokyo. Had a disappointing World Championships though, just missed making the finals due to a slip. The apparatus was sanitised prior to him competing, and wasn't sure whether there had been enough chalk put on it, but that was just a discussion point at the time. It's all in the past now. That disappointment has been put behind him, and sometimes when you get disappointment in sport, it really does make you focus and show the world the following year just how good you can be. Born in Northern Ireland, but now lives in Dublin. Took a bronze in this event in the World Championships in 2019. He's the first Irish gymnast to win a medal, and is the current Commonwealth Games champion as well in the pommel horse. No slips today. Also has taken gold in the European Championships back in 2018, so well used to being on the podium. So 15.2 is the score to beat. Just 22 years of age. So a very bright future in front of him. The Olympic rings tattoo, as so many of the athletes at the Olympic Games celebrate by having that tattoo. It really is the pinnacle of the career. And I'm sure that Rhys is working hard now for Paris 2024. Really does go for high degree difficulty. That often pays off for the number of medals that he has won. And the disappointment of the World Championships now behind him as he looks forward. And just taking a long time to decide on that all-important final score. incredible high competition at this World Cup in Doha. And really good to see so many competing now, having gone through a very difficult 2 years with the COVID situation. A lot of them were able to carry on training during that time, and now it's good for them to be back competing, sometimes in front of an audience, sometimes not. But as I said earlier, regardless, they get so much support, so much camaraderie from the other competitors as well. It is really lovely to see and very special. .933. That's good enough to put him in this silver medal position at the moment. Maxime Gentjes from Belgium qualified in 6th place. Normally has a difficulty of around 5.7. Needs to keep the legs together. It just completely made him lose the speed. I didn't feel that he really got that speed right from the very start. It all looked just a little bit sluggish. And when you start like that, it's really, really hard to keep it going. Lovely extension in the legs and feet, but again, just losing that momentum. Not his day, but he's done incredibly well to qualify to be in these finals. So he should really take that from it. And, you know, it's all about experience as well. It's one thing taking part in qualifications, but then to be on the centre stage in a final. He is very experienced. I mean, he's been to 6 World Championships. But this apparatus, not one of his strongest. 42nd last year at the World Championships. So as I say, take the positives from qualifying in the final, regroup, watch it on video, as a lot of these gymnasts do. Just understand where it went wrong. Sometimes it's not about the physical performance, sometimes it can be about the mental attitude as well. And I'm sure he would have visualized this many times in his head, but it's about how you cope when you're on the world stage in a final, and that is just experience that will get you there. His brother was also an artistic gymnast, competed in the World Championships back in 2009, 2010, and that's why he took up gymnastics, so that he could follow his brother when he's not busy in the gym. He studies management. Did take a gold in Slovenia last year in the World Challenge Cup, the horizontal bar, which is the stronger apparatus for him. So this is a score I'm sure he won't take delight in seeing.
And the result
Total score of 11.
11-1. Last gymnast on pole horse, representing Israel, Artem Dolgopian.
Artem Dolgopian, the 24-year-old. Good single handle work. Good speed. Oh, just losing legs, keep going. He was doing that in the practice just before as well. And it looked like he was almost practicing to see if he could then get it back under control again, but alas, wasn't to be. Disappointment for Artem Dolgopian after an exceptional performance on the floor. Just a little bit more to finalise his programme. Very disappointing for him. You can see the frustration on his face. Chose not to compete in the World Championships last year. The Olympic Games took a lot out of him, and he just really needed to have a bit of a rest. For Paris, he's hoping to compete in the all-around, and that's why he started doing apparatus like the pommel horse, because the coach really believes he is very capable of competing in the all-around, which is all the apparatus. He says he has an incredible team of people around him, and that's sometimes what keeps him going. Tel Aviv. Dad was a gymnast. You often find that actually with these gymnasts that their parents were involved in the sport as well. But in the early days, his dad had to coax him with sweets to get him to do the elements. 13.133. Total score, 6th position.
Mark shot of the gymnast and the judges.
So as we await the final confirmation of the medal places, we'll take a look back at some of the action from earlier. Fabulous performances, particularly from Kurbanov. 15.200, increasing his score from the qualification. Also from Reese McClanahan. Always goes for a difficult programme. Merdinyan Hirachan, who started us off earlier today. But we'll wait for official confirmation.
Marching of the judges for women artistic gymnastics, next apparatus will be 11 bar. marching of the judges.
So that concludes the pommel horse. Kurbanov taking the gold. McClenahan taking the silver. And Haruchin the bronze. As you can see the confirmation on the screen. Exceptional performance from Nariman Kurbanov. Score of 15.20. It really was absolutely stunning, beautiful to watch. Next, we move on to the uneven bars for women.
Marching of the gymnast finalists, uneven bar women artistic gymnastics.
As we welcome the finalists for the uneven bars.
Presentation of the finalists under the bars, women artistic gymnastics, representing Ukraine, Daniela Matrona, representing Malta, Ella Hoff, coming from Algeria, Anna Salem, representing Slovenia, Lucia Rivas, representing the Belarus Gymnastic Association, Anastasia Sansa. Representing Russian Gymnastic Federation, Victoria Liskunova. Representing Russian Gymnastic Federation, Maria Pinadera. And representing Hungary, Bianca Sherman. The first warm gymnast, 50 seconds of gymnast warm-up. First group.
So as they go to warm up, there's confirmation of the start list. Daniela Petrona from Ukraine starting us off.
Start value will be defined by Oksana
Should be a
Syulashuk.
really interesting uneven bars competition, a very young field indeed, and that is so good to see the talent that is coming through. Daniela Petrona, seeing here, just 15 years of age, what a talent. Then we have 3 16-year-olds and 1 17-year-old. 16-year-olds, Victoria Istanova, she qualified in first place.
This competition is
Part of the team that got gold at the Olympics last year.
This is Joanna Pratt.
Junior world champion in the all-around 2019. That doesn't help in getting rid of the nerves. They are allowed to have a spotter as long as they don't actually touch the gymnast. The coach can adjust the tension. The aim is that they link all the different elements and move from the high bar to the lower bar, showing good combinations. Lots of release and catch elements. And also different grips. What I mean by that is under the bar and over the bar. Important on handstands like that they show a good vertical line, good strong legs in execution. They often in the practice don't go through their full performance, they just maybe pick out the most difficult elements. They will often do a big release and catch near the beginning when they've got all of their energy. Construction, very important. Keep it fluid as possible. Lovely extension.
While that is over, we are starting the competition with the first gymnast on 11 bars.
So, leading the way, first gymnast to go, the 15-year-old Daniela Batrona from Ukraine. Just making sure that the apparatus is just how she wants it. Some gymnasts like water, others chalk. Coach getting the mats in the right place for her, making sure that everything is set up perfectly for this performance. Finished fourth last weekend, the World Cup in Germany. Was third in qualifications and then slightly dropped to get that fourth place. But here we go, Daniela Batrona from Ukraine. Nice line in the legs. She needs to really concentrate on keeping their legs close together. Look a little bit untidy in places if you don't. Beautiful line there. Bit of separation again from the legs. Keep the momentum. Lovely double pike to finish. I love the extension that she has in her legs and feet. It just needs to keep working on getting the legs closer together so it doesn't look untidy at times. Let's say fourth in this event last weekend at the World Cup. Took the gold in the balance beam. She really does demonstrate maturity way above her years. Just 15 years of age. Such a talent for the future. And obviously in a rather difficult time for her with everything else going on. Really difficult to keep that composure. So really well done to her. Qualified second, 12.833. And a score of 12.466 for Daniela Patrona. Just very slightly less than she got in qualification.
Representing Malta, Ella Bock.
Fantastic to see an artistic gymnast from Malta take centre stage at this World Cup final. Qualified in 7th place. Just slight hesitation there. Just needs to keep the legs solid, and she's lost momentum, and what a shame, the strapping has come off. She needs to really focus now. Forget about that. She's done exceptionally well to get into these finals. Yeah, didn't quite get to that vertical in the handstand, and then it's impossible to carry on rotating. Had no option but to fall off there. Coach can't do anything but watch. And a nice pike to finish, and controlled the landing well. Fantastic for her to have qualified. She scored 10.033. Yeah, not the hardest of difficulty, but really fantastic to see Malta here. She is very well known in Malta. Won the People's Choice Award for Sport in 2018. And a Sporting Achievement Award from the Maltese Olympic Committee as well. So real talent, just 17 years of age, will be getting so much experience from being in a final here. Competed at the World Junior Championships back in 2019. Finished 74th in the all-around. But this really is fantastic experience for her on this uneven bars. She's a student, trains at Gym Stars Gymnastics Club. 8.9 is her score, down from 10.03, understandably, from the qualification.
Next gymnast on the path, representing Algeria, Lana Salem.
25-year-old Lana Salem, qualified 8th, 9.50. Good release and catches.
Connect to news that's important to you. From global to local coverage. The SBS News app. Anytime, anywhere. Download the free SBS News app and experience news with a difference.
A nice double tuck to finish. A little bit of separation of the legs towards the end. She didn't look overly happy with that. But again, she's in a final in a World Cup. Perhaps she knows she can do it better. 9.5. just qualified in 8th place, so she will definitely be moving up from that. Finished 8th in the African Championships in 2021. That was in the all-around. And 26th in the World Challenge Cup back in 2019 in Paris. So fantastic that she is here as a finalist. 25 years of age. Lots of strapping to support. 10.533. So that's quite an increase from her qualification. And she's increased the difficulty as well to 4.2. It was 3.9. And a 1 point extra from the qualification. Well done to her. Lucia Haraba, 20 years of age, from Slovenia. Qualified in 6th place. Lovely extension in her feet. Nice. Winding up for the dismount. Well, she looks pleased with that. Difficulty qualifying was 4.7 and she scored 10.766. Yeah, bravo, bravo from the coach. Always nice to see. She kept her cool. A little bit untidy on the legs there. Certainly has those knees locked at all times, which is good. She competed in 4 European Championships, finished 12th in this event last weekend. Took a bronze in the World Challenge Cup in Turkey and in Slovenia last year in this apparatus. Trains in Ljubljana. Looks delighted with that performance. 12.4, massive increase. Remember, 10.76 was what she scored in the qualification. Final 4 gymnasts have a chance to warm up now, make sure everything is prepped how they want it. The important thing on any of these apparatus is to not give the judges any reason to have those deductions in there. That could have been nasty there. You don't want to injure yourself before you get on the apparatus, or indeed when you're on it. Going through the paces that she has done in training so many times. when you add on the nerves of being in competition, which in some ways are good, but in some ways it can affect your performance. It's how you deal with that on the day is all important, and sometimes where it's difficult to train for that. Obviously they have sports psychology and everything, but there's nothing like actually being in a World Cup final to get those nerves going and see how you cope under pressure.
First gymnast representing Apparatus Gymnastic Association, Anastasia Smatsa.
So Anastasia Smatsa, 16-year-old, qualified 4th. Lovely lines. Lovely release catch. Very steady, just a tiny bit of leg separation. Now winding up for the pike to dismount. Very, very small step forward. Pike dismount, slightly harder than the tuck. Harder to rotate with the straight legs. Took 3 medals at the World Cup bus last weekend. Took a bronze in this apparatus, having qualified in 2nd place. Bronze in the balance beam and a silver in the floor, which is a great result for her, having qualified in 6th. European Championships last year, remember she would have only been 15 at that time. 54th in the uneven bars. Represents the Borisov Youth Sports School. So difficulty of 5, 12.366, putting her in 3rd place at the moment. Slightly higher difficulty than in qualification, with 2 higher.
Next gymnast, on the Apparatus, representing Russian Gymnastic Federation, Victoria Listunova.
So Victoria Listunova, 16 years of age. Coach there in case he needs to step in, but absolutely didn't need to. Showing a lot of confidence. Just didn't quite get that vertical there. Excellent. Very good performance there. Qualified first, 14.70. She was nearly 2 points clear of 2nd. So very, very strong. More difficulty. Didn't compete in the World Championships last year due to an elbow injury. But a very strong athlete indeed. Both coming up through the junior ranks, taking gold in the all-around of the Junior World Championships and silver in the uneven bars. Last year finished 4th in the uneven bars at the European Championships. determination. 6th in the Olympic Games last year. This Apparatus, and only 16 years of age. And certainly good enough to put her in first place by a magnificent lead, 14.566.
And she's taking the lead of the competition. Next gymnast, representing Russian Gymnastic Federation, Maria Minaeva.
So Maria Minaeva, another 16-year-old, qualified in 3rd place. The incredible levels these gymnasts can get to at such a young age. Slightly had to pike there to hold that. And yeah, disappointing on the landing. Just seemed to lose it just towards the end. Had to work really, really hard there. Definitely massive talent for the future. In qualification, she finished 7th in the World Championships last year. She's 16 now. She started at the age of 5. That's really what you need to do to be able to see the incredible levels that we're seeing here today from these young athletes, known to her teammates as Masha. Stepping off the mat there, so of course there will be a small deduction for that. Score in qualification was 12.533. Currently in first place, Listanova, 14.566. Her teammate obviously isn't going to get close to that. Nice to see that they don't have to wear their masks, they can actually catch their breath straight after the performance. Certainly making her wait quite a long time. Time to remove all that all-important strapping, protect from injuries. 13.366, and that puts her in the silver medal position at the moment. It's a guaranteed A medal.
13.366. Second place in the ranking. Last gymnast on the bar, representing Hungary, Bianca Sherman.
So from Hungary, the 18-year-old Bianca Sherman qualified 5th. Does tend to get nervous in finals, so she needs to really push through that. Solid. Nice double pike to finish. I felt that the performance improved, the routine got better as she went through it. It started off looking a little bit iffy, but she managed to control it and keep going. She's from Budapest. Athletic family. Her sister's a figure skater. The World Challenge Cup in her home country, Hungary, back in 2019. She was first in qualification for the uneven bars, but sixth in the finals. '29th in the World Championships back in 2019. So 11.066 her qualification score.
As a result,
10.633, putting her in sixth place.
3. Please march out of the gymnast.
So slightly behind where she was in qualification. But well done to all of the gymnasts that took part in the uneven bars. Really, really good to see the young talent that's coming through as we await confirmation of the final scores. First, Victoria Listanova. Second, Maria Mineva. Bronze goes to Daniela Petrona. Ella Borg from Malta, great to see her in a final. I think the nerves got the better of her slightly. But you know, when you're 17 years of age, you're representing your country in a final of a World Cup. It really isn't surprising. And it's all a very big learning experience. So we now move from the uneven bars to the steel rings. The last final of the day.
Marching of the judges. Ring.
The all-important judges take their position. I have to say the organisation here has been truly exceptional. Such a great venue. And they certainly, well, they've had plenty of practice over the years. The World Cup being held here since 2008. Regular hosts as well of other major sporting events such as the Asian Games.
Marching of the gymnast finalists on the rings.
As we welcome the finalists for the steel rings World Cup here in Doha. And here's the confirmation of the start list for the steel rings final.
Presentation of the gymnast finalists on the rings. Representing Belarus Gymnastics Federation, Dmitry Urinovich. Representing Georgia, Saba Abeshadeh. Coming from Armenia, Vahan Nafyan. From Ukraine, Roman Vashenko. Representing Azerbaijan, Nikita Simonov. From Ukraine, Ilya Kovtun. Representing Armenia, Artur Avedisyan. And from Azerbaijan, Ivan Tikhonov. Welcome for the first group of the gymnasts.
So as the gymnasts move to the apparatus to have their warm-up in the final apparatus of the day, these steel rings. Vahan Davjian qualified first from Armenia. After Apparatus second, also from Armenia, showing their strength. Dmitry qualifying third after a very strong performance.
Judge for difficulty representing Morocco, Mohamed Mehdi Ezoui, and Mr. Boris Kulin from Croatia. Judges for execution representing Ireland, Denis Donugay, Jacob Levy, Israel, representing Belgium, Pierre Perez, representing Australia, Mrs. Melanie Jenkins, and representing Kazakhstan, Timur Amirbekov. This competition is under supervision of the FIG Technical Delegate, Mr. Artur Viskevich.
So the rings, all about top half strength. You need to hold each element for 2 seconds to be awarded the skill, and overall the program needs to be composed of swing, strength and hold, well, pretty much in equal proportion. Coach, as you can see, will be assisting them to get onto the rings in the first place, but they can't help at all, especially with that initial swing. If they seem to be helping them move, there's a deduction. When they hold positions, the arms must be straight. And sometimes you'll see, and I'm sure a lot of you are really experts in this anyway, but sometimes you'll see that they will open their hands up when they're on the rings, and that shows that they've got complete control, particularly in movements like the crucifix.
Warm-up is over. We are starting the competition on the rings with the first gymnast representing Belarus Gymnastics Association, Dmitry Urinovich.
So Dmitry Herinovich, put my teeth in. Herinovich qualified third for Belarus. Showing really nice hold there. Good vertical line. pike double tuck into top planche. Important to keep the rings as steady as possible in those holds. Super strength there. Judges are looking for no fluctuation in the legs. And a good solid performance to start this off. Scored 14.33 in qualification. Showing some good vertical lines. Good swing to hold. Keeping the rings nice and steady there. A little bit fluctuation on the legs as he holds it steady. He looks pleased with that. Looks very solid, very steady, confident. That's what you want. Very, very slightly less than his qualification score, 14.333. Saba Abezadeh qualified 8th. It was one of the easier programs. Georgia. That's crucifix hold. Keeping the hands closed on the rings. Slightly off form there after the double pike and double tuck. Not quite controlling that dismount. Fabulous for him to be in the finals. It's an easier program. Just competed in one World Championships, which was back in 2018. Yeah, you can see that body alignment wasn't quite there. Came 22nd at the European Championships last year. This apparatus goes to the International Black Sea University. Nice extension in the feet. Just had to really dig deep, bend the knees too much, and when you bend the knees that much on a landing, it's very, very difficult to control. So scored 12.233, slightly less than his score in qualification.
Next gymnast on the
Dismount
rings,
affecting that.
representing Armenia, Vahan Latvian.
Vahan Davtyan qualified first, 14.70. Coach waiting for him to be really steady. Nice top plunge. Into the crucifix. Hands open, showing real strength there. Plunge, that was really strong stuff. Very slight movements. Really good swing into a strength hold. Hands open again. Excellent. Very masterful performance there. 33 years of age. Good difficulty. Scored 14.7 in the steel rings. I'm sure he's going to be very happy with that performance. Took a bronze in 2019 in Doha at the World Cup in this apparatus. Finished 6th back at the World Championships in 2018. The steel rings. Certainly very experienced on this apparatus. That's so hard to do, to get that speed and then just stop and hold the strength. And that shows just how talented he is. Has an element named after him, Davtyan Cross from the World Cup back in 2014. And competes with his older brother, Arthur, who took bronze in the vault at the Olympic Games. And that's certainly good enough to put him in first place, 14.700.
The lead of the competition. Next gymnast, last gymnast of the first group, representing Ukraine, Roman Vashenko.
So just doing his final preparation, making sure that there's no malfunction, which we sometimes see. All these bandages and grips. So Roman Vashenko from Ukraine qualified 5th. With a difficulty of 6.0. Straight away opening the hands to show added strength. Didn't quite make this. Oh, that was a real shame. Didn't quite make the planche crucifix. That's so hard to take when they know that they can do it so much better and have done it so much better in training, and then it all just doesn't come together when it comes to the competition. Straight into the top planche. Nice and steady. Well, disappointment for him after qualifying in 5th place. But great to see him in this finals. He's 59th in this event at the World Championships last year. Came 4th in the steel rings a few years ago now, back in 2018 as a junior. He's only 21 years of age now. That was the Junior European Championships in Glasgow. Just missing out on a medal there. So disappointing when you know you can do it so much better and you have in training, but that's sport and it's how you pick yourself up, brush yourself down. And I always admire the way they immediately get back on the apparatus and finish the program to get the best score that they can, knowing that they are going to have the automatic deductions. Trains for the Osvita Club in Kyiv. .13.733 was his score in qualification. .333 due to the deduction. Not only do they have to really work hard on their strength, but also the orientation on the dismount as well sometimes can be very difficult and takes an awful lot of practice.
We are starting the competition with the second group on the rings. With the third gymnast representing Azerbaijan, Nikita Simonov.
So, next to go, Nikita Simonov, qualified in 4th place. Azerbaijan, 14.066 was his score. Just getting nice and steady to feel comfortable. Nice and steady. Really strong holds, so they have to be more than 2 seconds. Just very slight little bit of wobbling there. Top planche. Just a very, very slight adjustment as we go into the crucifix. Nicely controlled. Getting really nice control after the rotations. And a good finish. Good performance there. World Championships back in 2018. He was 8th in this event. Determination. Born in Russia, moved to Azerbaijan in 2018. Had FIG approval to compete for Azerbaijan. Qualified ahead of his teammate, Ivan Tikhonov. So 14.066. Was a scoring qualification. That was a good, solid, strong performance. .33, putting him in second place at the moment. Difficulty of 6.0, so slightly more than in qualification.
Gymnast on the rings, representing Ukraine, Ilya Kovtun.
So our third chance to see Ilya Kovtun, the 18-year-old today. Qualified 7th in the still rings. With a fairly, one of the easiest degree difficulties in qualification of a 5.0. Nice Blanche. Lovely control. Just a little bit overarched just at the end. Hold it steady. Just a little wobbling. That all makes a difference to the judges' scores. Just slight adjustments. And a good dismount. Really does push himself, doesn't he? Does all the apparatus. Not easy doing 3 finals in one afternoon. And a nice line there. Does exceptionally well in the all-around. Taking the bronze at the World Championships last year. Finishing 11th at the Olympic Games. Multiple award winner as well at the Junior European Championships. 5 golds, including all around, which is an incredible achievement. So his score was 13.933. His difficulty was 5.0. That was in qualification. So all the strapping off. Still fiddling around with the wrist a little bit as he was earlier. 13.3, slightly higher on the difficulty as well from qualification, putting him in 4th place at the moment.
Next gymnast, rings, representing Armenia.
2 more to compete. Artur Abetzian, qualified in 2nd place from Armenia. Behind his teammate Davtyan, currently lying in 1st place, 14.7. Into the top planche. Nice and steady. Crucifix as well. Very confident, strong performance so far. And a good dismount. He is happy with that. I'm sure there's a lot of friendly rivalry between him and Dabjian. Dabjian qualified first, but Xian qualified second. Always good to have competition in your own country. It really drives you on in any sport, not just artistic gymnastics. So after Xian, he scored 14.633 in qualification. Vahan Dabjian, he scored 14.70 in the final, so that's the score he's after. Certainly very hopeful of getting a place on that podium. Has he done enough? Takes the gold from his teammate. It's silver, 14.500, so just 0.2 behind Dabjian. But looked absolutely delighted with that. So guaranteed a medal.
Last gymnast for today. Last gymnast on the ring final, representing Azerbaijan, Ivan Tikhonov.
Ivan Tikhonov from Azerbaijan, the last to compete at these finals today. Qualified 6th, 13.40. Good swing and hold. Just a little bit wobbly there. But they're supposed to be very still for 2 seconds. Very slight twist on the hip. Very strong dismount. Well done, Ivan Tikhonov. Finished 13th in this event at the European Championships last year. It took place in Bâle. Known to his teammates as Vanya. Another one that moved from the Russian Federation to Azerbaijan. That was back in July 2018. So he was reserve in the Russian squad and just felt that he had more chance to grow by changing to Azerbaijan. Finished 8th in the parallel bars last weekend. So we await the final score for Tikhonov before we confirm the final placings and move on to the award ceremonies. Really has been a fabulous afternoon of artistic gymnastics. Standard forever continues to grow. So many highlights. So well organised. Some disappointments. Some of the gymnasts will be going back to their hotels tonight, feeling super excited about what they achieved today and pleased with their performances, whether or not they got a medal. Some, it's all about qualifying for the finals and holding it together. 13.633, 5th place for Ivan Tikhonov.
March on of the gymnast are all of the judges.
So Davtyan from Armenia taking the gold with 14.70. His teammate Arta Avetisyan, the silver 14.5. Nikita Simonov, Azerbaijan 14.3, taking the bronze. So they'll just regroup as the organisers get on with organising the medal ceremony. Which will be for the pommel horse first, then the uneven bars, and then the rings, as we look at a few of the highlights.
FIG Artistic Gymnastic Apparatus World Cup, presented by Taishan. Medal ceremony for the men artistic gymnastic pommel horse. Please march in of the medalists.
So we welcome the medalists for the pommel horse at this World Cup in Doha.
Third place, the winner of the bronze medal, representing Armenia, Aratun Merinyan.
Taking the bronze,
Second place,
Meridian, the 37-year-old from Armenia.
Ireland, is McClellan.
Special moment for Rhys McClanahan
And the winner
from Ireland,
the gold medals,
taking the silver.
representing Kazakhstan, Nariman Kurbanov.
And the gold, Nariman
Please, gymnasts,
Kurbanov.
you can collect your medals.
Really was absolutely superb today from Kazakhstan.
And please, national anthems of Kazakhstan. Thank you for the finalists. and artistic gymnastics
So
from
confirmation-
the whole 14th
Confirmation
edition
there,
of the
Kurbanov
FIG
taking the gold
Apparatus World
to his
Cup.
silver that he took in this event last year.
Medal ceremony for the women artistic gymnastics on another bar, marching of the gymnast. On the third place and winner of the bronze medal, Daniela Patrona, Ukraine.
So Daniela Petrona, 15 years of
You
age,
can collect your medal.
taking the bronze. Very big moment for her,
Applause for Daniela Patrona,
having
Ukraine,
finished
third
fourth
place.
1 week ago in Germany, proudly displaying the flag. The two other athletes from Russia not able to be on the podium, one of the rules from the governing body.
Gymnast.
So here they come now.
Second place and winner of the silver medal, Maria Minaeva, RG.
So Maria Minieva, just 16 years of age.
And first
Hard to
place
believe.
and winner of the
Two
gold medal,
16-year-olds and a 15-year-old.
Lustinova, RG.
Well, congratulations to them.
Please, gymnasts, you can collect your medals.
As they collect their medals.
Please, the music of proposed Russian Gymnastics Federation.
And not playing the national anthem.
Thank you, girls. Medalist of 100 bar for the 14th edition of FIG Artistic Gymnastics Apparatus
As I
World
say,
Cup.
incredible to see two
Presented
16-year-olds
by
and a
Taishan.
15-year-old. Such talent.
Next medal ceremony will be for the rings and artistic gymnastics. Please, marching of the medalist.
And the final medal ceremony, as you probably heard, is for the incredible gymnasts that took part in the still rings.
Third place and winner of the bronze medal, representing Azerbaijan, Nikita Simonov.
Taking the bronze, Nikita Simonov, qualified in fourth, moved up to get that bronze medal from Azerbaijan.
Representing Armenia, Artur
is Jan taking the
And
silver
winner
for Armenia.
of the gold medal brings 14th edition of the FIG Artistic Gymnastics World Cup presented by Taishan. Coming from Armenia, Bahan Natsyan.
And his teammate taking the gold, the 33-year-old Varhan Davchian.
Please, the gymnasts, you can collect your medals. Please, your attention for the national anthems from Armenia. Congratulations for the finalists on the rings.
Yep, I agree with that. Many congratulations to the finalists. Confirmation of the final rankings there.
And Mr. Ali Al-Hidmi, President of Qatar Gymnastics Federation and first Vice President of International Gymnastics Federation.
And those all-important photographs just at the end. Well, I very much hope that you've enjoyed today's coverage. We will be back again on the finals tomorrow for the vault for men, beam, parallel bars, the floor for women and the high bar. So I do hope you can join me then. We're going to leave you with a few of the highlights. But from me, Andrea Holland, it's goodbye for now.